Okay, when we're starting on time, I'm hoping to get you out of here ahead of time. So I think that's a good goal to have. Let me introduce myself. I am Marta Arrieta, and I work at the University of South Alabama in Mobile, Alabama. This is, I believe, the fourth or fifth time that I come to this particular place, this particular training structure to talk about community engagement. And as I was telling Ms. Lambert, who actually is the one we all need to thank for having these things, always on time and moving forward. Every year when I prepare for this talk, I get more and more on-the-ground examples. So it used to be that I would have to be looking at articles that exalted the benefits, the value of community engagement, but there were few practitioners. And now it's like everybody has to be a practitioner of community engagement. So that is actually very exciting to see. My own work as a practitioner of community engagement started in 2003 when I first came to the University of South Alabama. And there was the opportunity for what at that time was called an export grant. This was a grant from the Office of Minority Health and Health Disparities. And the idea was to eliminate health disparities. So that was our charge. We had to write grants that would help us, processes that would help us eliminate health disparities. At that time, and that was actually my first assignment as an assistant professor coming into the University of South Alabama to write the research component of that grant. And I was looking at alternatives at that time, 2003. Something that was very big was the chronic management model of disease. So we were moving from looking at disease as acute episodes and to just consider, and which is the truth, that a lot of the major problems that we have in health are chronic diseases. And that those chronic diseases were not going to be transformed or changed or addressed or eliminated, which was our charge, if we dealt with them on a one-on-one, acute sort of basis, that there had to be an overall system to address those diseases in a very concerted form, and this was the idea of chronic disease management. So that was one of the things that I wrote in my grant. But then the other thing that to me was very close, because I came from a third world country. See, in my country, physicians have to deal with poverty every single day. In my country, the rate of poverty is between 70 to 80%. So it's like nobody can live without having to interact or address issues of poverty. And in doing that, there was this idea of the community health worker. And so we had to draw on the expertise, on the know-how of people in the community to help us take care of our patients. It wasn't going to happen on our office visits on a 8 to 5 work day. We were not going to do anything if we just kept to ourselves in our offices. We had to engage with people in the community, train them, train women to support other women to breastfeed, train women to train other women how to provide oral rehydration, because diarrhea was killing babies all over the place. And so this idea of working with the community, to me, was like, that's my day-to-day. And here I come to the United States, and I see that idea being, timidly pushed forward. And I say, no, this is the way. And so I wrote that, and we got the grant. And later on, I was writing what made sense to me. But then I realized that the reason why we got the grant was because we had said we're going to work with our community, and the community is going to be central in helping us do what we want, which is eliminate health disparities. So of course, that was got me great points with my dean. It was 6 months into my being there, you know. And the thing is, from then on, we've been at it. I mean, we are now in 2019, 16 years of what we call the Center for Healthy Communities, which unequivocally is based on this idea of community engagement. So it's always a pleasure for me to come and talk to you about what's my passion. As we have moved, 2010, 2012, this idea of translational research came to be. Another big, big paradigm shift. So it used to be my hypothesis, my methods, my ideas, my research group, my university, and it was, we are not going to talk about this, we are not going to share it, because if we share it, perhaps another university is going to get the grant. This is my idea, this is my hypothesis, I want the grant in my university. But now it's all changed, isn't it? Collaboration, team science, partnerships. So now basically, and UAB has been extremely productive in this sense. It's networks of universities. It is networks of research institutions, clinical sites, hospitals, safety net clinics. That's how you get your grants now. It's no longer, let's keep my idea short, sort of restrained, not share it because somebody else might get the grant. Now it's we get grants when we collaborate. So that's a very big paradigm shift also. And so here you are, starting in your career with, you know, all the future ahead of you. When I come here, what I see is the future head of departments, the future deans of universities, the future professors in, you know, in other places. And what our responsibility is sort of give you the tools to succeed in those endeavors, okay? And I strongly believe that this idea of community engagement is one of the strongest tools you will get. And I hope that as I move forward in this presentation, you'll see it. So let's get started. So this is what we're going to be doing today. We're going to look at some definitions, but before the definitions, I want to help you see it, to really feel it. What is community engagement? Why is there so much hype about community engagement? This is a paradigm shift. You truly are, you as scientists, are at this juncture in which science, the way we do science, is changing. It's changing in many different ways. As I said, collaboration rather than individualistic construct. It is no longer the ivory tower, but community engagement. And this is a shift. It's not going to go back. It's not a drift like with influenza. It is a shift. And how does it work? It's very simple. Researchers need populations, and populations need researchers. And I'll show you a good example of that. And then we'll go through some definitions and principles to remember, okay? Okay, so my first question is to you. Are you translational researchers? What can you say? What would you say? We're among friends here. Do you consider yourself a translational researcher? Why? Tell us what's your idea.
Well, in general, I'm trying to ask the questions that are most relevant to the patient population, but.
Excellent. So a translational researcher, were you able to hear her question? I think we're okay, Ms. Lambert. So a translational researcher considers the needs of patients, isn't it? That's an excellent answer. That's actually at the heart of what a translational researcher is. Anybody else? Are you a translational researcher? What would make you a translational researcher? Well, let's see what answers our big guiding gurus at NIH can give to that, okay? We'll see that. The other thing is, am I a community engaged researcher? Because even if you don't know it, that's the fact. You have to be a community engaged researcher. Nothing less than that will do. So are you a community engaged researcher? What does it take? Let me make it easy for you on the front end. It actually only takes attitude. It's just an attitude. I mean, you don't really, I mean, it's great when you are out there in the field with your partners, with community members working right beside you, or in meetings with community advisory boards. It's great. But not everybody has to do that. However, everybody needs to have the attitude, needs to consider that this is not just, baloney. Let those people in public health take care of it. I'm a basic scientist. I'm dealing with cells. I'm dealing with genomics. Community engagement is not for me. It is for you. It is for you. It's mainly an attitude. That's why I say it's a paradigm shift. All of these new things have to become sort of your DNA as a translational scientist and as a scientist in the 21st century. Those in the 21st century, this has to become part of your DNA. As I said, not necessarily you have to be in the front lines, but it's important that you understand that that's part of being a scientist in the 21st century. Okay? Now, let's see. So, what's community engagement anyway? How do you view community engagement?
It's when you involve your stakeholders, your members from the community, whatever topic or that you're researching. So for me, it's HIV. So I want to involve some of those agencies that work in the community, as well as some of the people from that target population.
Okay, so basically it's having a channel of communication with whoever is a person experiencing what you are studying. And that channel can be very direct, or it could be just listening sometimes, just being aware of your population. Okay, very good. Anybody else? What is community engagement? Yeah.
Could it include sharing your research with the lay community?
That is a big, also again, paradigm shift. Used to be just publish in your scientific journals, use your high-level technical language to make it look as the most difficult that you can. And now we have to tell the participants in our studies, the communities where our studies are being conducted. And that actually is what we call dissemination. And there is a whole realm of dissemination science too. How do you do that? Okay, Excellent. So we have B, community engagement means have some sort of a link to your patient population, to the object of your research. And that link can be, a one-on-one, or it could just be, okay, let's see what the AIDS support group in my community is doing, or even just let me talk a little bit to the patients that come to the clinic and see what the problems are. And then it's also this idea of the results of my work are not just to be discussed or understood by my peers, they also have to be understood by the people in the community, where my patients, the people that participated in my studies. There is another big component of community engagement, it's called return of value. Have you heard of that? Return of value. This is very big with the All of Us program, that precision medicine initiative. So we, you, UAB, we, USA, are recruiting patients for this big cohort, 1 million people, are asking them to give us urine and blood. And if they cannot give us blood, saliva, because eventually there's going to be genetic testing. And so we see the value of 1 million people giving us information that's going to guide really the development of precision medicine. We see the value. What's the value for the person that comes in and gives you the blood? What's that value? Anybody working with all of us? Yeah.
Well, they might be able to learn something about their health or certain risks that they might have based on their genetic profiles, or something that's really attractive to people is tracing their ancestry. So sometimes they take advantage of that. Things like that.
Yes, yes. So in the case of all of us, that's being discussed, that everybody who, these million people, they will be giving the 23andMe sort of return. But that's not happening right now. That's still in the works. And imagine how much it's going to cost 1 million and to get them to their homes, but it's also that opportunity that the interaction with the person gives us to educate, but also to learn about them. So this idea of return of value is whenever you touch a person, whenever you are looking for your participants in your clinical trials or your volunteers that donate blood in your labs, that relationship, there has to be some sort of return of value to them because you are going to profit. You're going to write your paper. You are going to build your career. You're going to build science based on their blood, on their saliva. So what can we give as a return of value to these people? And the least we can, first of all, is respect, isn't it? So the All of Us says, we are looking for participant partners. Bless you. All of Us doesn't call the study, the people who come to participate participants or subjects or patients. They call them participant partners, acknowledging that if they weren't giving you their blood and their saliva, there would be no study. There would be no study, okay? And so respect, the simplest thing that we can give to the persons who are in our studies. And then whatever is feasible, education, some sort of entry point into our health system, the ability to know a face, a friendly face. Let's say they are coming today because they are for the regular diabetes checkup. But next time they may be coming to the emergency room, and there might be a person there that's part of the study that may just simply just just the simple touch of going and say, hey, what's happening? And if possible, help them out, move them past through your emergency room. There are many things that we can do as return of value, and that's another central component of this idea, where the participants are no longer just our guinea pigs. They are people that we respect and honor, because if it weren't for them, the best science, the best laid out protocol is not going to work if you don't have participants. And so they are your partners, really. They are your partners in developing the science. Okay, so if you have no idea what community engagement might be, I pointed you to this link. This link is to the NCATS April 2019 newsletter. So what I want to give you now is some idea of how NCATS, which is, basically your overall sponsor, and basically NCATS is your godfather, the beacon of what you should be doing, the one that tells us, that sets up the rule. So I put here some examples of what's on that newsletter. Let's see. Okay, so so working together, that's the idea of community engagement. Together who? Scientists and patients, that's the together. Translational science highlight. Rare diseases is possibly the strongest initiative at NCATS when it comes to community engagement. And so they speak about involving patients as partners through the translational research process to ensure that research and interventions address patient needs, which was what you were saying with your HIV research, making sure, it's neat, I love it, we should be advancing science for the sake of science, yes, because there is techniques, methodologies, questions, there is so much we don't know. But, yeah, that's nice. But if you could also be addressing patient needs, that gives value to your work. Okay? So that's one thing that NIH and CATS is doing. Address your interventions should address patient needs. Here, NCATS philosophy to maximize progress. So it's, the underlying idea is to accelerate the progress of science. Investigators and patients must work together. And they work together at this meeting. So see, this is the latest NCATS newsletter, and it's saying, address your patient needs, work together with your patients. The next thing here, I wonder. See if it works from here. There you go. So there is groups of patients, patient advocacy groups that can be tremendous allies for you. So imagine the powerful, the power that is behind a mother that wants her child to get better. And that mother is the lady over there who created a support group for this very rare disease because her daughter had it. And of course, she wanted to do something for her daughter. So look at this. She recalled the time researchers and doctors asked for her thoughts on a research project at her first consortium meeting. So this is investigators saying, give us a hypothesis. Give us a hypothesis that addresses your view of the disease. I mean, your daughter is basically going to die. And so what do you think we need to study? And look at what she says. They changed years of where they were going with the research because now they could understand the patient's needs. So those hypotheses that the people you are trying to serve can generate are very, how do you call them, down-to-earth issues. These are things that matter to them. This is what's going to make the difference in their lives. And so whenever you have a choice, yes, it's great to advance the science. It's great to get this new technique. It's great to understand this new cell, this new path. But if you have something that's going to address your patient needs, choose that. You know, that's the idea. Okay, let's see if this will work. And finally, this is not just diabetes, cardiovascular disease, osteoporosis. It's at the forefront of our science. Okay, we really need to partner with patients to figure out what is most affecting their lives and what they would like to see changed in the context of a clinical trial. So whenever possible, address with your best tool, the clinical trial, something that's going to change the experience of your patients, okay? And let's see. Patients, family members, and patient recruitment specialists have to be your allies to discuss challenges and possible solutions. So yes, you do have the high specialized knowledge. You do know how to make your cells respond, put them in baths that make them, maximize their output, move those mitochondria, create your proteins. You have that knowledge, but you need to also understand what's on the ground, because that knowledge on its own is not going to help these patients unless you understand what they need, okay? So, let's see. Okay, I get it. Okay, patients, but communities? Okay, well, why? Because our science should transform the health status of our population. It's great to do science, but if people are still dying of things that we know how to treat, we're not getting, we're not really doing very well. And so this is the head of NCATS. And it's basically saying that our science needs to address, in this case, rural health disparities. So it's not just enough to have the patient perspective, you have to have the community, the overall, the end game, the end result in mind. Let's see. We need to do patient-focused research. Community engagement enables innovative collaborations with scientists and creates diverse research. We need to have, let's see, engagement with communities and patients. This model is essential to create successful approaches to address, in this case, rural health disparities. So if we truly want our work, your day-to-day, 8 to 5, or weekends, early mornings, to have that fundamental impact, then you have to work with the community. Okay. The model where you as a scientist are happy or unhappy in your lab, in your silo, and then you hope that your science is translated into clinical care for the patients, and that magically is going to make the United States the healthiest population in the world. Doesn't work. It just doesn't work. NCATS has a different approach, okay? So now it's not linear. It's not like you are, a basic scientist or a clinician is on an end, and at the other end, automatically and magically, population health happens. It is all interrelated, and the patient, and I would add there the community, is necessary at the heart. Look at the center of this model. And then the science can be produced at all levels. It's not necessarily linear. You can enter this cycle of discovery and creation at any point, but the patient and the community is at the heart. And this is what I love. Scientists have to address social imperatives because the end result is health equity. That's what we are after. So it used to be that if you spoke of social justice, you could speak of social justice in the humanities, anthropology, sociology. Yeah, those are the social justice people. We are scientists, biomedical research, basic science. I mean, what do these anthropologists know about proteins and DNA and RNA and CRISPR techniques? Come on. Well, this is the head of NCAT saying, we as scientists have to have an understanding of the social issues because, really, we as scientists get a lot of money. This is taxpayer money. And how can we not be concerned or understand that we should use that money in a way in which advances society as a whole? So, new paradigm shift. This is NCATS. This is not a philosopher or humanities person. This is a physician, head of a major enterprise to advance science. That's saying we need to understand that there is a social context, and whenever possible, not whenever possible, and put it at the center of what we do. And again, I'm not telling you that you have to go and, let's say, march with people or become an advocate to be in the forefront of social change. I'm not telling you that. What I'm telling you is the attitude. You need to incorporate this in your DNA. It has to be part of who you are as a scientist. It doesn't mean that you have to drop your white lab coat and go out and demonstrate. There might be a time for that. Remember the scientists' march for climate change, for scientific understanding. There might be a time for that, but it's not like you have to do it every day. It's just that you need to be aware and whenever possible, support and promote. And if you can do something, do it, okay? lots of money invested in this paradigm. Actually, lots of money invested in you, in your science. What can happen when there is a strong push from the community? The AIDS epidemic, the best example we have, okay? So when the epidemic started, yes, it's true that science did not immediately come to the rescue. There were so many issues of stigma and social problems, but at some point it kicked in, and it was the patients who actually pushed this tremendous acceleration of knowledge to get to the to understanding exactly what was the etiology, to creating the first treatments, and then again the power of a mother. I mean, Ryan White, a hemophiliac that got sick, and this mother wanted to accelerate to make to get his child the treatment, but not only her child, everybody's child. And so the Ryan White Act actually provides for treatment for anyone who cannot afford it. And now, again, the beauty of science, HIV is a chronic disease. It's not the death sentence that used to be. So remember, the ultimate impact of science is if we can transform the health, if we can address health disparities, if we can get to health equity. But this is a great example because 81% of people, low economic status, low education, but treated in these safety net clinics, 81% virally suppressed, which is, again, tremendous benefit because then transmission is not going to be, that much. 80% have medical care, a medical home, a routine chronic approach to their disease. Wouldn't it be great if we could say the same for diabetes, for cardiovascular disease? That's the population health impact that this new model of NCATS is trying to push forward. Any questions or comments so far? Yeah.
I'm just interested in, so we've been talking about examples when people are affected by a disease that impacts their life.
Mm-hmm.
How, in your opinion, can we enable people to take an interest in a disease that maybe they don't yet have, but that they're invested enough in their health that they want to forestall ever getting that disease?
So that's the issue of prevention?
Yes.
Okay. That's a difficult question because it's very easy to push people when they see something is wrong, but to push people to prevent or stop something from coming is not as easy. I think that takes bigger, wider efforts. For example, in the communities around the USA Medical Center, which is a disadvantaged community, there is issues of crime, of no sidewalks for people to walk. There is a food desert, okay? So the Robert Wood Johnson answer to your question is create a culture of health. So make it where the environment is the promoter, okay? So that's the closer I can get to answering your question. My concern is that that again is a paradigm shift for society. you know? And so that might be, that takes time, but the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation is pushing for that. Anything else? Any other questions or comments? Okay, so I want to give you an example of how it works. Okay, so that's the basic equation. Okay, so I want to tell you about a program that I am now, involved with. Now, this is the issue of precision prevention, genomics. This is an article that appeared in 2017 in this particular journal. And these people here, these are all the gurus of DNA integrity research. These are the people who are developing the methodology to actually be able to measure DNA damage. And here is my partner, Robert Sobel. See, this is sort of the seminal article on this issue. And what they propose is that these approaches and functional assays can be integral to population studies that fuse basic translational clinical research with commercial expertise in order to accelerate personalized prevention. So these are the people who are creating the methodology and are acknowledging that now we need to move this into the population. Okay, that's a figure in that article. Look at what it says, and then I'll show you the figure. So it says, from traditional assays at the center, so this is like the beginning of the science, traditional assays, to today's tools for population studies, which is the outer circle. So it's saying, okay, this is the beginning of the technology. This is the starting science. Now we are moving into a bigger circle, and there you see Sobel, okay? Because these techniques might be used at the population. So let's integrate these techniques into population studies, orange circle. So here, this is extremely powerful for a researcher. Names of people in this seminal article saying, these are the people who have developed the technology, and then it says, but those who are integrating it at the population level, they are the ones who are at the forefront. And their names are there. It's not just like, it's very public, okay? Yeah, this was the beginning. These people are moving forward, moving the science forward, but the idea is to get here. And there's names of people there who are already there. So where do you want to be in this, in this picture? You would want your name to be in the orange part, in that orange circle. So I think this is very graphic of understanding that, yes, you can be in the lab, but you have to build some sort of connection to the population. Otherwise, you're going to remain here, or you may move here, which is extremely valuable, but the impact is here. And as I said, names, these are the gurus of this idea, of this research. So consider establishing some sort of nexus. As I said, not everybody can be in the forefront. I myself have very little knowledge or know-how as to what Sobel does in the lab. But connect with someone who is doing that population work, because that's going to put you here. Okay? I'm sure this gentleman is not the one in the clinics getting samples from the patients, but he has someone, a colleague, a partner, some sort of support at the institutional level that connects him with the population. So please consider, I mean, this is very graphic of what you need to do to be in that outer circle, okay? Okay, so they write the article, and then what would you know? An RFA, okay? Actually, this RFA followed the workshop in which these people got together and wrote the article. But they had said the next step is population. Well, okay, NIEHS, okay, let's do population studies, okay? And they speak about population studies, cohorts, studies in populations. And here it is, one-time issue of an RFA, which is basically tailored to the people in the picture. Kosovo is one of them, and he's not in the outer circle. And serendipity, he goes to a meeting with my boss and says, you know, there is this RFA that's like basically meant for me, but I cannot apply because I don't have population connections. And Dr. Cruz says, don't worry, we do have those. And in 10 days, we wrote the proposal, and we got to be, out of 7, the second one. And see, I understand, and it's to me very interesting, genomics, the idea of DNA integrity. I learned about something called a COMET chip, in which they can measure the damage to DNA because they can measure sort of the trajectory of DNA as it migrates in an agarose gel. Very exciting for me. But what I contributed was the fact that I have my population-based platform. I could call on a cohort. See? And if it hadn't been for that partnership, Sobol would not have been able to be one of those 7 scientists that now are going to be studying this at the population level. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay. But yes, we wrote that grant in 10 days, but it was based. Well, let me just give you a few things. Okay, so we spoke about a cohort. Anyway, I think I've made my point. Okay, but before that, remember, I started in 2003. Okay, I was ready in 2018 to say, we can write this in 10 days. But getting that engagement is not happening, on a day. So before I was able to do that, I had worked with my population, okay? And I want to sort of show you how it came to be, because truly, if I had not started with my collaborators that I'm going to show you right now, if I had not started with them, my career would be nothing at this point. Or I would be, sort of still in the trenches trying to make it happen. But it was 2003 when we started with this idea. Okay, so this is one of the things that I am most proud of that I have done. So this was a collaboration between the Bay Area Women Coalition and HDRG, which is the Health Disparities Research Group, which is some part of that export grant that we created. Okay, so that's the Office of the Bay Area Women Coalition. That's our Center for Healthy Communities. And that's the 3 women that actually are the leaders of the Bay Area Women Coalition. Their community, impoverished community, low socioeconomic status, they don't say we are so low socioeconomic status. They say we are a low wealth community. Basically, 60% of the people who live in that community are unemployed. They may be disabled, or they may just not be working. So as you can imagine, not a lot of money comes into that community. And there comes these women with a vision of not letting their community die, basically. And I mean, yes, people were dying, that's true, but also people were fleeing. And so they did not want that to happen, okay? Many times I say, if in my life I would do 10% of what these women did for their community, I would be very proud. I mean, no, Libones is a retired science teacher. The other women, one of them made her living selling candy, and so she's known as Miss Sweet. The other person, Miss Ella, no education, but they work on community safety, they work on constructing homes, they did cultural and educational activities, they promote volunteerism, and they wanted to get a clinic in their community. And they've done it. There is a clinic in the community now. So imagine impact, okay? Okay, so what happened? We, in our work in the community, we had connected. There came the opportunity for a grant that was actually for partnerships. So we went to them and said, okay, what can we do that's of use to you? And they, after discussion, said, okay, let's do a survey to understand what are the health conditions and environmental problems in our community. Okay, so we wrote the grant, but we were not funded. And this is key. This is where my boss said, we're going to do it anyway. Okay, now it took time, but at the end of the day, we did the survey, and in 2010, we had, we provided results to the community. On our end, we tested something that was called the Research Apprentice model. So borrowing from this idea of community members who could be trainers for lactation or for oral rehydration, I proposed the idea, well, why not train them in research? I mean, you know, they can do surveys, they can enter data, they can do data management. Let's test that hypothesis. And so we tested that hypothesis. And now I want to show you the return of having said we're going to do it anyway, which I translate to you from, you know, when you are deans, when you are heads of department, when you are president of universities, put money into community engagement, because it's not as easy to get grants to begin with in this area. But my boss said, yes, we're going to just do it with our money. Look at the return, okay? So started with that collaboration in which we put the money. We did, based on this research apprentice concept, which we had tested with them, we created a sentinel surveillance system and got money for 7 years. And now with Sobol, we are there. And the more we do, the stronger we get. So the sky is the limit. Yeah, you have a question.
How long did it take you to do the training so that you felt comfortable with them being able to do surveys and entering the data, since this is probably something they haven't seen or done before?
Okay, so our trainings were perhaps 4-6 hours at each time. We did trainings in a stepped way. So the first thing, for example, was informed consent. How do you get informed consent? How do you ask questions? Once they got over that and they got their questionnaires, then we brought them into our office and we taught them to enter in access the data. And at that time, I had a tremendous person who actually taught and evaluated. So she had them do, okay, let's say 10 questionnaires and then evaluated how they were doing. So I would say this is not where we had to give them let's say, a year of training, a master's level training. No, this was, let's train as we go. And it worked for us. Does that answer your question? Okay, good. Any other question or comment? Okay. Okay, would you like a break? Let's have a 5-minute break, okay? I think we are 2/3, so just another third to go.
Are these like the Rockies?
They are.
Yes. No. It took me a while to bite the bullet, but it took me forever, and they are so comfortable. They are super great. Have you tried washing them? What? Have you tried washing them?
I haven't, and they're getting kind of
Yeah, I was like, mine are black, so
Yeah.
I was like, they don't show as much as the lighter colors.
Right.
But I want to buy a pair in leopard like this, and so I know they would show there, and so I'm like waiting for one of my friends to wash them.
Well, like there's I think you just take the liner out and just wash it in the washer, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what they say. They just like take the liner out, throw them in the washer. Not to mention them smell terrible because they're like such a weird shape. I can't wear like socks with them.
Yeah.
So.
Towels for the worst.
Oh. Especially if it would like rain. Oh my god. It was like I like had to put them outside my office to do that. I'm sorry.
My black I have a pair like black jeans and they're utterly destroyed. I had to really I need a new pair of black flats. So I'm debating between outfits and jeans. So comfortable. Yes, and I was at a conference last week and watched the always had like, okay, get your load up. It's your days or something.
Yeah, so
like
you
everyone
guys do, you guys do so much. You know, like I'm like in my lab most of the time,
Even
so it's not. It's like it's more standing than walking.
Yeah.
And so I like the Rockies for the standing, but I've never tried walking with live-ons.
Well, I walk to work, and so it's about a mile-ish.
And then you walk around like all day though, like
Depending on, I'm on research right now, so I'm in the middle of my standing desk. And it's happening. It's like I always think I walk more than I do, and then it's already on my neck. This hour.
my husband, he's like, I move all the time, and I finally got him Fitbit, and he wore it like one day. So it was like 4,000 steps.
Yeah.
And he's like, I guess I don't walk as much as I could.
Yeah.
I was like, sorry. I felt really bad for him.
I used to get so many like steps.
Well, he thought he was walking like miles, like 10,000 steps, whatever.
That's 5 miles though. That's when you realize 5 miles is a lot.
Yeah. So I used to waitress. It was super easy. Like,
Oh yeah, if you're on your feet all day.
yeah, waitress.
Now the thing is, I'm always running around lab, but like
It's
I
not
never.
very far.
But like this, so like this tracks. No,
Is that one of those?
It's the hybrid.
The hybrid one?
Yeah, so it looks like it's a regular
But
one.
you never charge it, right?
You never charge it.
Yeah, it just eventually like died.
Well, you just replace the battery.
Like, but it's like after a year or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
It's
like
just
a
like a
normal watch
standard
battery.
watch.
Yeah,
But it like still
Misfit
vibrates.
is what it's saying, right?
Huh? No, this is one of the fossil. So you still control your headphones with the buttons.
Yeah.
And, track your steps, vibrates on you.
Yeah.
But
But
it
people
doesn't.
say they look a lot.
But I think it looks better than.
Whatever. Judgy. Didn't you buy like a new strap for it?
I bought this
On Amazon. You were like red. I remember you taking it out of the box. You were so pumped. You were
I was
doing like
like,
your
yeah.
seminar.
Well, because it comes with a leather one. You know, you wear leather every day.
Oh really?
Yeah. So
It's literally never.
My problem is like the rate of changing the battery. Like I have a nice watch and I haven't worn it for years. The battery died a year ago.
A year ago?
No, that's what
I
happens.
still have it, and it's
I have like 2 or 3 watches, probably like around.
Yeah.
Spread around my the old watches from my childhood that are dead.
yeah.
That they died, and I was like, oh, I can replace the battery. I think I replaced the battery in 1 watch my entire life.
My house got robbed and they didn't even watch. But they're not gonna
Oh
battery.
my god. That's so funny. My house got robbed and they didn't watch it.
Yeah, it was really interesting how much they like fucking took it.
What did they take? I'm so
We
interested.
took 2 iPads and then my husband's wedding band doesn't wear. And then they took like a gold necklace that was
more sentimental than valuable, but they left like I have a left that, they left all my
Were these like designer watches?
No, it was, I mean, it was a nicer watch. My parents had graduated med school, but it was just dead sitting there.
Like what kind of, I mean, what kind of brand?
Swiss or?
Yeah.
I'm
That'd be
always
like the first thing
interested.
you go for. You be surprised watches.
Right, watches are expensive. I'm just like, no, when people say like what brand is, really that bad, you know, like, I would think they would take like your TV. Like, do they not?
They
Oh,
bulky,
They
though.
took an Xbox.
You see, that's so bulky though. The TVs are so cheap.
Jeans like,
Yeah.
Jeans, do you like, do you browse?
So this is how you do it, guys.
Was wrong. And they took the Xbox and the games.
Oh, they took all the games.
They took pistols. They took
Oh, yeah,
rifles. They
Because the
took
rifles are
gold.
big.
The rifles were too big.
There was only gold jewelry and not
And
anything
all the
silver
gold
or anything
jewelry.
else.
All
I
the
guess
gold
because they
jewelry.
can sell it
And
melt it down.
They can,
Oh.
yeah,
But
they
you
can
can
sell.
also
You can
sell
sell
I
them.
guess you need a lot more.
Yeah. My goodness, I had no idea these are the things that were at risk.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Oh, yeah. They didn't take a TV.
I was thinking
No,
why
it's
like
too
big
big.
giant TV is like.
Yeah, they
really
really
cool.
They wanted that Xbox.
Yeah, well, those are probably expensive. Was that?
Well, the thing is,
was
those
it
are
John
so
Lamont?
That was several years ago. Yeah, they were a lot.
Yeah.
Also, I think also those are really easy to flip. You could take
Yeah,
them
you can.
anywhere. You can even take them to GameStop and they'll give you cash right
Yeah,
there.
they will.
Oh my God, you don't know if they're stolen or not. You go there with a stack of stolen games. Walk out.
Yeah.
Oh,
So that's what they go for. They'll aim for things like gold jewelry where they take it to a pawn shop. And
Yeah. Well, I have none of these things, so.
Okay, we're going to get started.
I know. Yeah, we're poor.
Okay, as I said, we are about a third, just one more third to go. And now I need you to evaluate me. So my intention was at this point to have covered 1, 2, and 3. Do you think I did? Okay, good. Okay, so now some principles, because you have to have some definitions to work with. Okay. So the first question I asked you, are you a translational researcher? And the answers I got were good. Yes, because I'm thinking of my patients. Okay. What you need to add is you are also thinking of the population. So imagine your work being through your patients, improving population health. So a translational researcher has that end goal in mind. As I said, doesn't mean that you have to drop your tools and go take care of people in the emergency room. It just means, as a translational researcher, in your DNA is this concept of my work has to have at some point a population health impact. And how do we get to that? Because we talk to our patients, we talk to the advocacy groups that represent our patients, and in the case of the question of prevention, we talk to these big people who are trying to make a culture of health happen. So it's just, we talk, we are not silos anymore. We are aware of the big context of our work. That's a translational scientist. This is the translational science construct in which, from T0, you hopefully move to T4, which is the population impact. But you need to add, don't be like Sobol, right there in the center of that figure, but there were other people that were beyond that, okay? So don't think, I will do that at the end. Start early, okay? Getting your connections. And as I said, support the work of people who are in the field, because they are going to be your partners when you need them. Again, again, why are we doing this? Well, as an immigrant to this country, I came to the US right after my medical school because I wanted to practice or to learn in the country where there was the best science. And yes, I believe we can be very proud of that, okay? But it's not translating to population health. And this, again, I have to be very honest with you in saying, I don't believe that just because you connect with the community, we're going to have the best healthcare. You know, there is a lot of structural issues here in this country. And that's where that social component that you also need to incorporate plays a role. But I am thinking, so I'm not saying if we all become community engaged researchers and translational researchers, we're going to get to the best healthcare in the world. There are other issues. But if we do become translational researchers and community engaged researchers, we're getting much closer to having that best health status in the world. So that's the mandate, actually, that your science will make that happen. So this is all coming from an Institute of Medicine report on the CTSA as a program. And what they say is we recognize we are good at our science, but we are not good at the population impact. And to me, I mean, you know, the US won the gold medal in basketball, but it's like that tremendous team cannot win in the street, because in the street there are problems: poverty, low education, racism. So excellent technique, all the support, training, dedication, but if you put them on the street, like if you put the science that you all are creating, the tremendous power of science in the United States is not reflecting on gains in the street. That's why translational science, community engagement. So these are very powerful commitments. So it says, what does the CTSA want to do? Wants to create two-way synergies with local and regional communities. So beyond just science to the community. And as I said, your best clinical trial, if you don't have participants, not going to fly. So in return for the community's participation, the CTSAs will help to deliver improved medical care to the whole population. That's what they believe, you know, that's what they set out to do. Okay, let's create translational scientists, community engaged scientists, because we want the community to be part of our science, but in return of value. That's the promise of the CTSA. This is a major seminal article on why the CTSAs were created. Okay, so when we talk about community engagement, it's a matter of quality and of degree, okay? So your university, your academic institution, your research institution has to make a decision. How am I going to approach community engagement? This is institutional level, really, because as I said, if my boss hadn't said you were going to do it anyway, if my boss hadn't decided to commit resources, I would not be here. I truly would not be here, okay? So there has to be an institutional decision that this makes sense, we're going to invest, okay? And so again, are we just going to do outreach? Are we going to consult advisory boards, so on and so forth? Are we going to involve the communities? Are we going to truly collaborate, sit at the table, and hear concerns and address them, and let the community hear our concerns and address it? And are we ready for shared leadership? So can you imagine the day in which the president of UAB would sit at whatever meeting and have next to him or her a community leader and says, we are doing this together? You know, a lot has to happen to get to that point, because there is memorandums of agreement, you know, rules of engagement, but that's the whole spectrum. And I truly believe there's going to come the day where next to the university president, there's going to be a community leader, because the university is a community resource, isn't it? Okay, so, but again, I am not asking you to be at that point. I'm asking you to consider it, to incorporate it in your DNA, that there are levels, and usually you start with outreach. You know, it doesn't happen overnight, and it is a process. Okay, so then, and you need to know that abbreviation CENR, that's really a new fad. That's the way, you know, if you want that abbreviation in your research protocol. It's community engaged research. So again, there is levels. What used to be was the community-placed research. These were the helicopter researchers. Come, do your study, go out. The community never knows what happened, where are the results, were any changes made based on what you studied. This is what makes communities feel like guinea pigs, because it's truly, you know, use it, and there is no return. So we don't want to be there. We really don't want to be there. Basic community partnership. So that's some sort of a relationship, respectful relationship. This is basically community advisory boards. When you bring into your study a community advisory board, you are at that level. There is a basic partnership, but they are your advisors. So the researcher is making the key decisions. I mean, you're taking their advice, but you are making the decisions. That's the level that we are with our project with Sobol, because we do have a strong community advisory board. They've helped us in many ways, but at the end of the day, they cannot change the research. It's going to be a DNA integrity research, you know? When you really start developing trust between the community and you, that's when you start listening to them. That's when you can actually hear their hypotheses. That's when, if you ask them, what would you like for us to be studying, they will tell you what is valuable to them, okay? And then the community-based participatory research, which is basically the community gives you the hypothesis and you put your expertise, all your knowledge in the service of studying something that's very important for the community. That was the level in which we started with the Bay Area Women Coalition, because we told them, okay, there is this opportunity. What do you want us to do? And they told us, we want a survey, and we serve them. You know, we put all of our know-how into getting that survey done. That was a truly community-based participatory research, because the hypothesis came from the community. And so this is to say that not necessarily you have to be set. I mean, I don't want you to don't ever be a community-based research, but it is a two-way street. Like you can, you know, like we were at the forefront with Bay Area Women's, now we are in a basic community research partnership. That's okay. We are still community-engaged researchers, okay? Okay, and the last thing that I have is how to community engage. So how are there any guidelines for this? Yes, there is. This is an article in Academic Medicine in 2012 that says, okay, this is how you do it. First thing, identify your partners, okay? Learn the etiquette of community engagement, be politically correct, be cultural competent, build a sustainable network of community engaged researchers. Yes, that's what I'm telling you, is the institution that actually has to support this kind of work. Like in the case of Bay Area Women, my boss invested his money into making us do the work. And so that kind, there has to be a sustainability that's beyond the grant level, because when the grant ends, everything ends. So there has to be some sort of structure that supports. Recognize that community engaged research will require the development of new methodologies. Okay, with Sobol, he said, I need two blood samples taken 2 weeks apart for my essay. I said, that's not going to work. Can we get one sample? And you run the test, run 2 sets of tests on the same day, because the committee member is not going to come back in 2 weeks, These are not patients, these are community members. We are bringing them to give blood for Sobol's study. I'm not going to ask them to come, okay? So you have to make some concessions. Improve translation and dissemination plans. So basically grow the science of translation and dissemination. Okay, so this is the scholarly talk. I want to give you the experiential talk, okay? You can do community engagement from your head, or you can do it from your heart. What do you think is going to work better? Okay, so it's not, define your partners, okay? It's not learn the etiquette. It's not learn to be politically correct. It's internalize why. Why do you have to do this? There is a basic sense of respect that has to happen. I show you the money, how much money we can get, but don't go for the money. Go because you truly believe that they can help you grow your science. There is a big difference there, okay? Communicate at a human level. Yes, I have my MD, MPH, PhD, but as I said, I haven't done 10% of what Libones Dubos has done. Remember the community, all of that construction of homes, all of that crime, getting the community ridden of crime, all that volunteerism opportunities. I'm not even at her ankle. And I do have my MD, MPH, PhD. So you need to start weighing those things, Understand and honor the difference in urgency. So for me, Health Disparities is my work. Yes, it's not an 8 to 5. I work nights and weekends. But at the end of the day, if we don't solve health disparities, I'm going to be all right. For them, it's their life. Okay, remember, 60% unemployed. One of the quotes that I haven't put here by a community member was, kids are having sex at 12. We have pregnant teens. I want to do something about it. The clean surgical statement is, I want to eliminate health disparities. For them, is my neighbor, a teen mother. So understand that there is an urgency that I'm trying to connect with that urgency because they cannot wait. I mean, really, we sat with Sobol and our community advisory board. He is studying DNA integrity. They immediately said, I live on a neighborhood where there is a turpentine plant next to me. At night, when they dump, my lips start tingling. I have tried to cover my windows with tape. Look at the urgency, okay? And so he said, I told Sobol, look at this urgency, what can we do, you know? And of course, said, well, let's write a white paper, let's explain what's the specific environmental insults that this community is saying, and then perhaps we can look for a super fund sort of funding. So see the synergy. I mean, I had not thought of a white paper. I don't have the connections with the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences that Sobol has. But if we recognize that urgency, we can move faster, okay, in addressing these issues. Intelligence has nothing to do with education. Actually, if you are intelligent and educated, you got the best of both worlds. But there is amazing intellectual power in the community. It's just that many people have not gotten the education that we have been, you know, privileged to have. So again, informed consent. IRB requires us to provide, to ask for tiered informed consent. So people have to give us permission to store their blood, immortalize their cells, use those products not only in Sobol's study, but potentially in other studies that he might think of in the future, or give us permissions to share their samples with the consortium investigators so that other people can do other tests, okay? So this is a lengthy 2-page, that part, only that section, 2-page in the informed consent. Me, my research assistant, and my other research assistant were not comfortable with this language. I mean, it wasn't difficult language. It was just the sequence somehow of everything they had to check was not good. So we go to our community advisory board, they look at it, and they say, you have to take away option C. Option C was, okay, at the beginning, they were going to say, I give you permission to take my blood samples, to store my blood samples, yes or no. So technically, if you say no, that's it, isn't it? You should not be doing anymore. Well, in the second page, there was option C that said, I do not give you permission to store my blood samples, but you can ask me, you can contact me to ask my permission for some other future studies. It doesn't make sense. They already said no. And so what we were grappling with is it doesn't make sense. They take option C. That's the one that shouldn't be there because they already said no. Listen, there is a lot of intellectual power in these people. Don't underestimate them. And then the next step is, you know, when you have an opportunity, promote the commitment at the institutional level, because that's what's going to make your institution powerful. The fact that the University of South Alabama has this high-level genomics lab and has this Center for Healthy Communities, that's what makes the institution powerful. And so when you are in a position to make decisions, do invest, support this kind of commitment. And the last thing is, it takes time to move from no engagement to some sort of a true partnership. But once you are there, remember how we went from $0 to a 7-year project to a 5-year project. And again, it's not because of the money, okay? The money helps. That's how we work, you know, that's what sustains universities. But it's because it's also incredible to see these people work with you and sit at the table and find out what was wrong with that informed consent, that you just had a feeling there is something wrong here. They say, no, that's the one that has to go. That's all I have for you. Any comments or questions? Okay, well, I think we are right on time. You have a great rest of your day, okay?